Hey, what's going on, CoinOpTV subscribers? Robert Welkin here. In this video, I want to talk about For All Mankind, Episode 7. It's called Hi Bob on Apple TV Plus. This video will contain spoilers. I've been reviewing a bunch of these Apple TV Plus shows on my YouTube channel, so hopefully you guys check some of those out, and please subscribe, hit the bell, like, comment, favorite, all that jazz. So let's get started. So the episode is called Hi Bob. It's a reference to the astronauts watching the reruns of the videotape of the 6 episodes of the Bob Newhart show that they have brought along with them, apparently bootlegging them out on their beta SP tape, which is I'm dating myself by knowing what that is, but that was kind of the competitor to the VHS back in the day. So Ed, Gordo, Danielle, they're on Jamestown Base Station on the moon. This episode was more fun than last week. Why? Because, hey, we were on the moon. We were on the moon doing moon things. We were struggling with the moon. We were exploring the moon. We were scientificing the moon. We were doing moon things. And heck, that's what I'm for. I'm here for all mankind, is to see what people are up to on the moon. I mean, I care about people back on Earth, but once you got some astronauts on the moon, I want to see those astronauts doing some astronaut thingies on the moon, and not so much the regular Earthers doing their regular, stuff on Earth. So that's just my preference. You guys, let me know what you think. So Ed, Gordo, and Danny, they're kicking it in the station. They're doing some research. They're watching some TV. Danielle's checking out some ants and studying them. She actually video Skypes with her hubby Clay back on Earth, and he's struggling to find work and dealing with being alone. So you do kind of get a little bit of the Earth struggle with the distance there and the disconnect with the family and how they're kind of struggling. It seems like everybody's struggling. It doesn't seem, I guess Tracy Stevens, Gordo's wife, seems to be the only one that's a little level-headed with things, although their son, is reckless and getting in trouble with Ed's son. So that's kind of side plot happening that has a little bit of a teaser payoff sort of at the end there. We get a little more of the FBI investigation going on with Ellen and Larry. They're trying to pinpoint and find out what's going on. Why are they going to gay bars? Is Larry a homosexual? Is Ellen a homosexual, lesbian? They're trying to investigate that because they don't want a smear campaign going out on the news. Again, this is back in the 70s, 80s, when, the people weren't really, the news and media, if people came out, was kind of frowned upon or something. So that's what they're sort of addressing in the show. I mean, serious topics, and we'll see how they kind of carry on with this. But there's a lot of pressure on Larry and Ellen. They're kind of building up this fake relationship that they've been having, and the FBI agent, or not the FBI agent, one of the guys in NASA is like, hey, well, if you guys get married, that'll sort of prove to the world that you guys aren't homosexuals. So that's what they wind up doing at the end, this little montage, and they get married. So good for Larry. He got to marry Ellen. It was a pretty gal. Unfortunately, she doesn't love him. She doesn't love dudes. Sorry. A little bit of side stuff with Tracy and Ed's wife, and their sons are getting into trouble at school. And back on the moon, Gordo is not enjoying life on the moon. He's starting to get a little stir crazy. He's starting to get a little nutty. It's kind of getting to him. They normally they would have been sort of done by now, but because the last Apollo had the accident, they can't send up the replacement to swap out the astronauts, so they're there for longer than they anticipated. And now the mind is starting to weaken. The senses are starting to kind of get him a little nutty, and Gordo is the one that's really he's starting to freak out a bit. The brain is deteriorating a little bit with his mind. So we get to sort of see that. I feel like we kind of almost could have saw that even deeper, even more intense. I mean, his eyes should have been like black from lack of sleep and sweating and just like really freaking out. But Gordo still looks kind of like a model and handsome and joking around or something like that. I mean, it was kind of interesting to see when he's chasing around the ants, and then he thought he had the ant in his helmet, or maybe he did, and he was kind of freaking out like that. Felt like more, I mean, I've never really been in those shoes, but that felt a little more like somebody going a little paranoid, insane or something. So that's kind of what they were getting at, but it's still, it's like For All Mankind is kind of like light TV. It's like, it's very light, doesn't really get too deep, too intense. It's kind of a complaint I have with the show. I wish it was more intense. I mean, when I watch For All Mankind, I sort of compare it to like a Man in the High Castle on Amazon, where it's kind of this what if show. So Man in the High Castle is a sort of what if the Nazis won the war and they were sort of in power, and For All Mankind is what if the Soviets, the Russians landed on the moon first, and how would we react as Americans to that situation? And I feel like things are just going the way they normally would anyway on the show, and it should be different. I mean, the Americans should be hella more paranoid, maybe combatant. Maybe they should be walking over and spying on the Soviet space station themselves, or maybe the opposite. Maybe they're empathetic and they want to reach out and talk to them. Maybe they're a little jealous of the Soviets and they want to communicate with them or something. But now they're just they're hanging out in their pod and they're just doing regular old scientific stuff and watching reruns of Bob Newhart and researching ants. And it just makes me wonder, like, why didn't you guys just make some sort of like show about space and NASA that doesn't have the what if Soviets went to the moon first? Because it feels like that has zero to do with the plot at all. The characters, the momentum, the exposition or whatever, it just doesn't feel like that means anything anymore. That was like a gimmick and a hook that you tried to use for the first few episodes. Apple TV Plus, if you listen in, why didn't you keep that as a thorough thread, a theme throughout the whole show? It just seems like everything back on Earth and in space is regular peas and potatoes, or whatever the phrase may be. So that's my little rant there. So anyway, there is a breaking point where the Bob Newhart tape breaks and Gordo really freaks out and he's like, wakes people up in the middle of the night and he's like, let's act out the scenes. That's when you know that his screws are getting a little loose up there. It's kind of, I wrote in my notes, it's kind of so boring. Like, they should have gone rogue. They should have just like walked on down to the Soviets space station on the moon, knocked on the door and said, hey, I got this bottle of brandy. You want to drink it? We can't speak the same language, but booze, let's party. Let's make it happen. That I would have been into. But just watching reruns of Bob Newhart on a space station and Skyping back and forth with family, man, who's approving this? I mean, I know I'm hating on the show every episode, but I want to love it. It's just it's disappointing me. So anyway, there's the breaking point where Danny and Ed realize, hey, you know what? We got to send Gordo home. Danny concocts the scheme to break her arm in the middle of the night so that they have to actually do a medical evac, emergency back. I've never broken my arm or leg before, but I can't imagine that that's an easy thing to do, and it felt very unrealistic. Like, I feel like if she smashed her head into a wall or fell in her chin or nose or something like that, that seems more believable. But how do you just break your arm? Like, you just put it in like a little thing and snap it or something? Like, there's no way you have the strength, the endurance, the ability, the willpower to do that. So again, another silly thing. They should have just had her smash her head into a ledge and had it sort of bleeding and swelling, and that would have been enough to do a little bit of a medical evac there. So anyway, back on Earth, we get to I guess this is kind of the meat of the episode, is the prejudice between the government, the FBI, and NASA against Larry and Ellen and their sexual preferences and all that stuff. And again, I was saying this earlier, I wanted them to dive into this more, and they are diving into more, but still, it just feels like we're just having some conversations in a room, and we're not really seeing kind of the, how the pressure is building all around them. I did like that the girlfriend in the bar, she told Elaine, she was like, hey, well, if you marry Larry, that's kind of it for us, right? And stuff. So you can kind of see a little bit more of how that's developing or working itself out, and they wind up getting married. So, they give into the pressure, life's pressure weighs too heavily on them. What else did I write down here? So yeah, we get the little montage at the end. Larry and Ellen get married. Ed's son, Shane, apparently is into more trouble and has some sort of accident at the end. That's the cliffhanger. We don't know what he did. He seems to be very reckless. He doesn't have his father figure. Ed's on the moon. So, Ed and Gordo is on the moon, so the wives can't take care of the kids. It's kind of a weak thing. I mean, hey, let's get some strong ladies in there to, handle the biz. I mean, that's kind of like what I would be more into. It just seems like everything on the show is very like light TV, and it's just kind of following the little bullet points of every other show that's happened for like the last 50 years. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's pushing any new boundaries, new direction or something like that. I mean, I could see if maybe one of the wives was like, hey, I don't care, but they're both sort of like, all right, kids in trouble, whatever, you're punished, like, I mean, maybe one of them, Tracy Stevens, maybe you could have figured this out. You're a smart gal. What's going on? Get those boys in shape. So anyway, that's what I thought about For All Mankind. We got a few more episodes to go. Let's see what happens. Hopefully you guys tune in and let me know what your thoughts are, your comments, reactions. It's great. I love reading comments when you say, Rob, you're totally wrong. I'm loving the show. It's great. The effects are great. Characters are great and all that. I'm giving you my opinion, my 2 cents, watching the shows and trying to enjoy them and love them, talk about them, communicate, and get a little dialogue going. So if there are things that I'm missing, let me know in the comments below. I'm all for that. I'll read them and respond and check them out. So thanks so much for watching for CoinOpTV. We'll see you guys in the next video.